People often ask me about my spiritual journey. What have I learned from painting the Stations of the Cross? Well, I've learned a lot. It's hard to put into words, though. I like to think of it as a kind of devotion, and it makes the white work so much more meaningful. To me, it's deep, it touches your soul, it touches my soul, and it can influence a lot of people. Well, there's such a rich culture in the Christian community. There were many challenges in this process of painting the 14 stations. First of all, understanding each of the stations, why they were important, and then understanding what it would have been like to have been there at that time and experience it. Those challenges were fascinating. I paint a lot of landscape paintings. I do a lot of paintings of many, many different subjects. But what's dearest to my heart is painting Christian scenes. I enjoy doing it because it's part of my faith, and it's part of what I believe in very, very strongly. In fact, I would do anything to have done this commission. Meeting the liturgical committee, they had commissioned the stained glass windows of the Judson Studios and Christopher Sladoff to do the sculpture. I went in, I showed my paintings that I had done before that were my Christian paintings. They asked me about what I would do, and I said I would go to Jerusalem and learn as much as I can about the 14 stations and do something that has never been done, perhaps. Look at it with a very fresh eye. And I've written some poems, and I recited a few of the poems for them. And perhaps that helped sway the liturgical committee a little bit too. But I think saying that I was going to go to Jerusalem was really a big help in why I received.
Descendi Iesus in Cafarnaum civitatem Galilee, ibi qui docevat illos Sabbati.
My wife Elaine and I went to Jerusalem and spent August, September. It was about the time of Ramadan. I met with Father Angelo, who had been leading the procession of the stations every Friday for the last 18 years.
So this is the whole palace of King Herod, and this is Jaffa Gate, and that's it right here.
We walked the stations many, many times, and so I spent a lot of time painting some of the stations, some of the areas reported to be, and then I'd go outside Jerusalem and paint as much as I could of Israel. When I came back, it was very interesting, and I had made some preliminary sketches of what I thought that they would look like. I thought, well, we've got to get a few people together and dress them up in biblical attire. Then I called up all my artist friends.
Feeling that impact of that sacrifice that is made. And Laura, that we should not just focus on that and that scene.
A lot of them were very willing to model for me for free. I hired a few models. I had an Arab there. I had a number of Jews that were there. Of course, John Stern, the director of the Irvine Museum, and I made him Caiaphas, the head priest of the Sanhedrin. I thought, well, I could do drawings first, but no, let's see how the actors or the artists come up and how they stage it. So we would do reenactments of the stations. Okay, everyone come in. You can have whips. Good. I was very happy to use my good friend Glenn Winters, who shot video for me, and I shot some video, and also we used still photography, and I did some sketching on location too. The one we used most was the old mill in San Marino.
Yeah, that's good.
Then we used my house.
Turn around. Jesus! He is the Son of God! You idiots! It's Jesus!
We did the first station, which is where Jesus is condemned.
Don't you recognize the Son of God?
And then we also at my house did the nailing to the cross, the 11th station, that. And then the crucifixion and the entombment, those two stations, we did at my friend's house in Malibu. Having people actually doing the reenactments and moving while they're doing that is so exciting because you get so many different views, and if you've got a camera all around, you can choose. And I didn't want someone going like this and another person going like that, and someone overly dramatic, but something a little bit more natural. the groupings they had, the expressions they had. To me, that's more interesting to try to come up with a composition that way. I wanted the costumes to be biblical, but I didn't want them to be drab. Because we're used to so much color here in Southern California, I thought that drab costumes, which might have been more authentic, would not have looked as good and not as gone as well with the decor in the church. Being in the old city of Jerusalem and being in the Middle East and having walked the Via Dolorosa, the experience back there, the dryness of the air, the color of the stone, I think was very, very important for me to see. I could see what the architecture was there. The second station where Jesus is given his cross, that site remains, and I painted that background. The architecture outside the city where Golgotha is would have looked very similar to what I painted in the 10th station where Jesus is stripped of his clothes. And I made a real study architecturally of how it could have looked back in that day. One thing about the painting that I enjoyed doing was painting in a very high key. The light in Jerusalem and in Israel is similar to Southern California. I don't have a lot of detail in them. They're painted in a muralistic style, but the colors are strong and vibrant, and it just works out very well that the stained glass windows that the Judson Studios did have similar colors. In fact, occasionally I would use some of their costumes and they would use some of my costumes. A wonderful give and take. I love working with them. I love doing this type of work. To me, I'd stay up at night till 6, 7, 8 in the morning and then go to sleep for a few hours and get up and work some more. It was such an exciting experience. I long to have projects like that. That first day, I still have chills thinking about bringing those down there and seeing the setting. I thought I was going to be a star in the church, and I just found out I'm just in the orchestra. This is really an exquisite place to be, and I was just elated. It's turned out to be every bit as beautiful and even more.